Good evening. Today is the third day of November 2016 in our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our brother, Dr. Alak Pandey. And we are still in Canto 5, the Godheads of the Little Life, in this great Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds. We are now on page 160 at the break.
So we start fourth line from above at the break. Now Sri Aurobindo will reveal to us the technology. He has spoken to us about the forces, something about the beings, their relation, the level of consciousness they represent. Now, how do these forces of the lower world and also of other planes, how do they actually act upon us? What is the mechanism? So as we were saying, it is like science to its details. This huge world unintelligibly turns in the shadow of a mused inconscience. It hides a key to inner meanings missed. It locks in our hearts a voice we cannot hear. So, if we go to a huge place where a lot of machines are running, a lot of work is going on, let's say to a press, and you want to know what's happening, who is running the machines. So you ask, hey, who is there, and you're just wondering all the time, you're seeing something is going on. But where is the man? Hidden. So that key is hidden inside the inconscient shadow itself. And that is a special grace, because through that we can unlock the meaning of this machine. Without that, we just see the machines, they don't make a sense to us. And that key is the psychic being. It's hidden in the heart, which can give us the true meaning. It locks in our hearts a voice we cannot hear, because all the machines are going on, and somebody hidden inside is telling us, look here, this is that. And we are far away on the surface. So unless we come near, we can't hear the voice. An enigmatic labor of the spirit, an exact machine of which none knows the use, an art and ingenuity without sense. It's full of paradoxes and full of a very subtle satire also. Satire at those who believe that, there is no divine, there is no consciousness behind all this. And so, therefore, Sri Aurobindo raises this question, or rather, makes this observation: an exact machine of which none knows the use, an art and ingenuity without sense. This minute, elaborate, orchestrated life forever plays its motiveless symphonies.
And this is a very interesting word.
Yeah.
It's motiveless symphonies. You see, it's not what we would normally find in the thesaurus or dictionary, aimless or drifting, goalless. But I take it, because of the word orchestrated and symphonies, as a motif. And a motif is a recurring idea or theme of our life.
Wow, this is fantastic. Wonderful.
So it's a motif, motiveless, without a theme of life, without an idea.
Yeah. And that's how it seems to us. And as I said, there is a gentle humor in it, that, it's an ingenious art without sense.
Yeah.
It's a elaborate machine which plays symphonies, but without
We don't.
idea. There was that joke that somebody said, "Oh, how can there is no God?" So you know, someone invited this scientist to the house, and he saw a very beautiful replica of a airplane. He said, "Wow, who made this?" He said, "Well, nobody." He said, "What do you mean nobody?" He said, "No, it just somehow came into existence." So the scientist said, "How can it be possible? How can it just come somehow into existence? You must be kidding." And he said, "Well, you must be kidding that you really believe that this entire cosmos has come into existence just like that." So here there is, as I said, a very subtle touch of humor. The mind learns and knows not, turning its back to truth. So why it doesn't know? It has turned its back to truth and is investigating. It's not moving towards truth. It has turned its back. There is no truth. There is no consciousness. There is nothing which is deeper. So it's all the time engaged with picking up things, learning this process, using it for its own ego purposes. That's why Shobinda says none knows the use. So people are using this machinery, for instance, the human body. People use now, they replace things, they do all kinds of things with the body. And still Shobinda is saying none knows the use. Because this human body is meant to be the instrument of the spirit. And you have to learn to use it that way. And it's a lovely instrument given to us. And needless to say, all of us, the way we use it or misuse it or abuse it. So the question is, we may say, well, we use it, we know. But we don't know. So none knows the
Mostly
use.
we abuse it.
Mostly we abuse it. And it's really a grace that we continue to still live on for long enough. It studies surface laws by surface thought. That's it.
There it is.
It's like often with regard to our medical profession, people have this tendency, at least in India, to make doctors sit on their head like gods. And doctors are very happy with this honor. So I often say, well, we are just linesman. The linesman is somebody, if your current goes, you call the linesman. Now I don't know whether we have it or not, but in olden days in village, he was the most important man. So when the current went, the linesman will come and see the immediate fault. He will say this wire and this wire are disconnected. He'll reconnect them or correct the fuse. And we are very happy. He used to get whatever bakshish, and he was also very happy. Well, we are linesmen in the sense we don't know anything about anything. We are just playing with superficial phenomena. And that is the tragedy, that we don't even know what is hidden inside a cell, how it springs into existence, what are the secret springs that hold it. It studies surface laws by surface thought, life steps surveys, and nature's process sees, not seeing for what she acts or why we live. See again this surface thought and nature's process. Like when I was studying medicine, even before that in biology, I still remember the shock I got when we were taught that living things are characterized by breathing. So if you don't breathe, you are not living. So I don't know why I felt a shock. I said, oh, it's as simple as that. So if we stop breathing, we die. And then I thought that there are small little organisms, they don't breathe. Then I learned that, well, they breathe in the sense there is through the skin and all this. But now, this concept of breathing equal to living is changing. For instance, earth may be living. Mountains live. So when you mistreat them, suddenly there are landslides. They heal it. It's like healing a wound. The universe is living, it breathes in and out. So we are reaching a concept that breathing as we understand is just one process among many. So one thing we know, that living is not equivalent to human breathing. Life can use 100 processes. So, well, there is a possibility that we can live without this act of breathing. Yogis do it, and Shobindu mentions in Savitri.
Yes.
So there is a possibility of discovering new things, which at this point we are so much fascinated by the processes that we don't understand there could be alternate paths. So, this is just one of the things. It marks her tireless care of just device, her patient intricacy of fine detail, the ingenious spirit's brave inventive plan. This fine detail, it's amazing. It, if you look at the human body, even errors have a meaning. Actually, very often people raise this question that if really it is so, then why do cell mutations, with each new series of cells that you create, some error creeps in, so that 7 or 8 times, let's say certain cells, or some others 100 times, they will regenerate, but with each regeneration they are not exactly the original, they become lesser and lesser, like carbon copies become lesser and lesser. So why this happens? Well, this is, look at nature. It has made sure that inevitably you'll draw near death after a certain point of time. You are programmed, because otherwise there will be a huge imbalance in the species. So nature even utilizes errors. What a fantastic! And yet look at the pattern on two leaves is not the same, two fingerprints is not the same. Fine detail, biometrics, eyes, cornea. What intricate detail. If you look at it, it's amazing. Just the neuronal network inside the brain. If you compare it and look at the universe, you'll feel this is no less than a cosmos. The length of intestines, small intestine, maybe 28 feet, I maybe approximate 28 feet of intestine is packed inside an abdomen, it's floating there. And if you look at this entire digestive process, it's an organ which is not an organ, it's just two hollow ends. Just look at it like this. Organs are closed. This not closed. It's open at both the ends. There is no enclosure. And the whole thing passes through it and, is taken care of. What a way. Even if you look at the intestine, the small little villi through which absorption takes place, the lungs, I can only recommend a movie because it's a very fascinating subject. The Fantastic Voyage. It's a very beautiful movie.
Yes, when they miniaturize. Yes.
Miniature humans, they have learned the art.
Yes.
And he enters through the veins they go to correct something in the brain.
Yes.
That whole passage is shown. It's amazing. And now comes the punchline. The ingenious spirit's brave inventive plan in her great futile mass of endless works adds purposeful figures to her purposeless sum. Purposeless sum is creation. Ask a scientist, is there a goal of... No, creation is without a goal and aim. Ask him what is the purpose of the cell. Oh, cell, it has this purpose. Purpose of mitochondria inside the cell, it has a purpose. Purpose of a small amino acid, it has a purpose. Countless such purposeful figures. But ask of the end result, purposeless sum. This very subtle humor there, and it shocks the mind to think.
I once asked Dr. Dalal, was the soul ever mentioned amongst philosophers? He says, not yet.
Not yet. So you see,
Yeah.
instead of admitting that perhaps there is, we don't know. That small savior grace, this humility. Why? Because many times people pick up a line from Sri Aurobindo and quote it like this. Oh, Sri Aurobindo says it's purposeless. Sri Aurobindo is not saying it's purposeless. He is showing us this is how it seems. Its gabled stories piles, its climbing roofs on the close carved foundations she has laid, imagined citadels reared in mythic air, or mounts a stair of dream to a mystic moon. Transient creations point and hit the sky. A world conjecture's scheme is labored out on the dim floor of mind's incertitude, or painfully built a fragmentary whole. So the mind tries to understand this whole thing, but everything is doubtful. Could be, may not be. And look at the gabled stories pile right beyond the stars. If you see the layers of atmosphere and how they enter into different kinds of gravity zones, it's amazing. Impenetrable, a mystery recondite, is the vast plan of which we are a part. This is what the mind has to understand, that we are just a small little fragment. And unless we know the full thing, we cannot know the real purpose of this fragment and how it has come into existence. That's why in the Veda and in yoga, the approach is very different from science. In science, you know part, this part, that part, connect them, go to the third, then you reconnect, and so you keep on building. And you keep on rebuilding, because when you discover the fourth part, you discover, oh no, first part had some other function. So there are ad infinitum parts. In yoga, you follow the reverse way. You find the core. And when you find the core, then very interestingly, the Vedas say, Yasmin Vigyate Sarvam Vigyati, knowing which all else is known. So when you discover that, then you understand this. And not you discover this plus this plus this and discover that. It's not possible. So that was the approach they have taken. And that's why Sri Aurobindo reminds us, its harmonies are discords to our view, because we know not the great theme they serve. Harmonies, one example that comes to my mind is one of the stanzas or poem of King Bhartari. Sri Aurobindo has translated it, The Century of Life, Niti Shatakam. So he writes under fate, how fate operates. So he says there is a snake inside, a snake charmer has kept a snake inside a basket. And obviously they hardly feed the snake, because otherwise he'll become ferocious and all. Whatever be their way, and the snake was feeling terribly hungry. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have the strength even to move a little. And where will he move? On the other side is a mouse, also hungry. So mouse looks at the basket and he thinks there may be some food inside. Look at the irony of the situation. He nibbles at the basket, opens it and goes inside in search of food, and the snake is waiting there and has it. Now you see, if you look at the totality, you understand the place that everything has, the worst events. But we have an egocentric point of view. So we say, there is all discord and chaos. But if we were to have a larger vision, then we will understand why everything happens in a way at a point of time. So, because we know not the great theme they serve. Sri Aurobindo speaks of Mahabharata. He says, the war of Kurukshetra saved India. He says that. He says, after that, maybe, this November issue we have taken out in All India Magazine. It's not an advertisement for All India Magazine, but the November issue is on Krishna. And from Sri Aurobindo's Bangla writings, that how Kurukshetra war saved India. Trojan war. Imagine people at that time would have thought how cruel God is. So many Kshatriyas were destroyed. But Sri Aurobindo says that because of that war, the culture of beauty, the unity of Greece, all this came about subsequent to that. But that moment people must have cried, wept tears of blood. Inscrutable work the cosmic agencies, only the fringe of a wide surge we see. Now he takes us to these cosmic agencies, at least at the lower life. Our instruments have not that greater light. Our will tunes not with the eternal will. Our heart's sight is too blind and passionate. That's why we don't see. One is we are blind with eyes, which is worse than being worse in the sense that we have an illusion of seeing. So there is a lot we don't see. Second is why we don't understand the purpose, because we have our own agenda, and when the eternal will doesn't act according to our agenda, we just call names. That's it. And the third is, our heart sight is blind and passionate.
And this is very interesting. Timmy used to talk to me about Sri Aurobindo's use of the word sightless.
Yes.
And it's not blind.
Yeah.
It's without seeing.
Yes. Without the ability to see, without seeing.
And our heart sight, he
Yes.
also speaks of when one has the vision in the heart,
Yes.
then
yes,
everything changes.
Everything changes. It's too blind and passionate. Impotent to share in nature's mystic tact. So things happen, behind it, there is a tact. And if we don't understand this tact, then we look at things only, I mean, my friend was the other day telling me a very interesting story of an American who has to fight that story where he learns to fall. And he has to fight with professional boxers. And he is a street rogue. And for some reason, to earn money, he has to fight. But what he has now he cannot fight professionals. But one thing he knows very well is if he is hit, how to bounce back. And his teacher teaches him one thing. He says, you just practice that to perfection. Every time you fall, bounce back. And now look at the tact. This is a tact. Now he had learned this. Now this man, because of this ability, ultimately frustrates everyone and wins. Simply because he can bounce back. And it can be very frustrating. It was reminding me of early days when, I used to love this game, table tennis. I could play pretty aggressively. Now I still remember a game where this man was very average. He would just return. I thought, this fellow easily.
Yes, we call him a backboard.
Yeah, and I was totally off guards. And I am seeing that whatever I do, whatever kind of shot, he just returns back. There is nothing great in the return, but he returns back. And of course I lost, many others lost. He reached the finals. Because everybody took him lightly. Because he didn't have anything else great. But he knew how to return the shot. And the return was pretty bad. You can hit it. But you hit it any which way he'll return. How he did it, we don't know. So tact. So nature has a tact in everything. And that's how it operates. And we don't understand her tact. It applies to our destiny also. Inapt to feel the pulse and core of things, our reason cannot sound life's mighty sea, and only counts its waves and scans its foam. Once something which very nicely, one of the ashram, very old, both sadhaks and somebody in a very good authority. People were talking to him about somebody's bad deeds, evil deeds. So he heard everything. Then he said something very interesting. I still remember. He said, yes, that is true, but we don't know what is going on inside him. See, we see the surface waves and foams. But the only thing true is what is going on inside. And Mother says all the rest is artificial. That is the important part. We don't see it. So we don't know how life is going to take a turn because we don't see this inside. It knows not whence these motions touch and pass. It sees not whither sweeps the hurrying flood through which people are carried away. It only sees the person who is carried away, but doesn't see one carry away. Look at Yudhishthir in the game of dice. What came into his mind that he put his wife and brothers and kingdom at stake? So this aspect, only it strives to canalize its powers and hopes to turn its course to human ends. But all its means come from the inconscient store. From there, we are being prompted. Unseen here act dim, huge world energies, and only trickles and currents are our share. We just feel it when they actually come in touch. Say illness. Mother says this is a force which comes from outside. We don't get to know it. And we get to know it only when actually we are sick. But she says you can develop the senses and come to know even when it is away. You can feel it coming. But we come to know only when it completely takes hold of us. And these are not ordinary, he's using the word huge world energies. Our mind lives far off from the authentic light, catching a little catching at little fragments of the truth in a small corner of infinity. Our lives are inlets of an ocean's force, like the backwaters. So backwaters is the sea in reflux, regurgitation, and we can swim, we can do boating. We have backwaters in Pondicherry and everywhere. So backwaters is not exactly the sea, but that is enough for us. So what we experience is just the backwaters. If the real power of the sea were to any time awaken in us, we won't be able to contain it. And Shobindu gives some examples. He speaks of the astonishing feats, how human system was prepared to contain, receive and express, limitless energy through the practice of brahmacharya. And he gives examples. He says how in ancient times feats of extraordinary memory was very common because of this basis. People could remember astonishing details. There are stories. Sure, Bindu. When people were playing cards, Sri Aurobindo picked up a novel and after half an hour he kept it aside. And then somebody said, "What? You have read it?" He said, "Yeah." It's hard to believe, He said, "Oh, really? Yeah? Okay, we'll test you." Someone picked up, opened a page at random, said, "Tell me, what is there on this page?" Sri Aurobindo could recount. As he recounted the paragraph, they said, "Okay." Swami Vivekananda was known to have this kind of an amazing memory. And Sri Aurobindo says in ancient times this was very common because they knew this capacity. Human beings have capacity to literally take up to infinite energy. But at this point we only experience the backwaters, the inlets of an ocean force, just little bit of trickle. Our conscious movements have sealed origins, but with those shadowy seats no converse hold. No understanding binds our comrade parts. Our acts emerge from a crypt our minds ignore. In a very interesting letter, Sri Aurobindo says there are three sources of action in human beings. One is the subliminal, the inner mind, the inner vital, and the inner physical. Second is, which is a huge amount, is subconscious, mechanically, habitually. And the third, which is rare, is the superconscient. And we are not aware of any of these. We just say, "I want to do this, I feel like it." Because this I is a puppet of nature. And nature plays with a toy. And the toy is happy and the person is happy. Our deepest depths are ignorant of themselves. Even our body is a mystery shop. How everything happens. Energy, matter, and all the transaction within, and it absorbs so much from environment, not just physical, psychological, occult, spiritual, all these impacts it takes and then utilizes them. It's very interesting to see the action of spiritual current and forces of higher consciousness on our physical being. It's a whole study. It's really a mystery shop. How the two can interact with each other. Same thing, vital interchange, for example. Sri Aurobindo says that. Says when two people meet, there is an exchange of energy. And usually from the higher to the lower, like in physical things, the greater energy goes to the lesser. And after a while, there is an equalization and an equilibrium. The higher tends to lose and the lower tends to gain. Now we don't even know about this occult transaction that goes on. And that's why he used to advise always that when you make an intimate friendship, you should be so careful. It should not be with just about anything and anybody. There has to be at least that common aspiration. Otherwise, it can be a great loss for one, gain for another. So these are many mysteries which are there going on as our earth's roots lurk screened below our earth. So lie unseen our roots of mind and life. Our springs are kept close, hid beneath, within. Our souls are moved by powers behind the wall. Springs, like an automaton. Somebody gives the key and then leaves the toy, and the toy moves. And the child is very happy and claps. Ah, the toy is moving. Then you change the direction, the toy moves. So these cosmic agencies are playing with us, and we allow, and they have fun. Just like we watch television serial, and we are watching a favorite serial, then we get bored, we say change the channel. So these cosmic powers play with man. In fact, there is a line in the Upanishad, men are the cattle of gods, and here he is speaking still of the dark powers. And they play with us. After a while, when the game is over, fine. That example of Monte Carlo, gambler. These lower vital forces will tell him, you put your money on this number, and he won. Put it on this number, and he won. He kept winning. All these suggestions were coming from these lower vital beings. Then he said, you put all your money on this number. And he did it, and they were having a fun. He lost. Then they suggested to him, take out your revolver, shoot yourself. And he shot himself. That is the fate when we don't use our discrimination. In the subterranean, now he is going deeper into the subconscious realm. In the subterranean reaches of the spirit, a pusa acts and recks not what it means. Using unthinking monitors and scribes, it is the cause of what we think and feel. But we often say, oh, I feel this way. No, this is my thought. Hardly your thought and hardly your feeling. It just waves from cosmos. That's why one of the first practices in yoga is to learn to stand back. Never to justify. Look at things how they are, what they are. Then we learn and grow. But they come from these. It is the cause of what we think and feel, the troglodytes of the subconscious mind. Troglodytes are primitive races. So primitive is not outside.
And cave dwellers.
Cave dwellers. The primitive is inside us. We were talking the other day of dinosaur who sleeps inside. And there is something. That's why when you make a movie like Jurassic Park and because something in us carries still that imprint which needs to objectivize. And the person created a movie and people enjoyed it. It's like it still exists inside as some kind of an imprint in the cells. And the moment a cell has an imprint, it has a tendency out of sheer habit to express it into the material world. So these are the troglodytes are the primitive cave dwellers, and they are in us, in our subconscious mind. Ill-trained, slow, stammering interpreters, only of their small tasks routine aware, and busy with the record in our cells. That's their task. Concealed in the subliminal secrecies, mid an obscure occult machinery, captured the mystic modes whose measured lilt transmits the messages of the cosmic force. Modes.
Beautiful passage.
So they don't have thoughts and feelings. They are unthinking, irrational. They just press, and they know where to press, which part to press. Even in the body, they know which part to press. And the body responds in a certain way because, that's the Morse code for the body. 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. That's it. And it presses. Of course, that is the computer programming. But earlier we had in telegraph machine, we had the Morse code.
Yes.
It's just the tuck tuck, and it was interpreted. And at the other end, the machine translated it into actual letters and words, like on the computer. So these forces just impinge. They know where to impinge. And based on their touch and pressure, we react, we have thoughts of certain kind, we have feelings of certain kind, we think, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, but just the Morse code.
Last night I spent many hours with these young people from Mumbai that Anayata
Yeah.
brings. And one of the things that they constantly talk about and ask about is anger.
Yes.
And why am I so angry? It's not them, and we know that. But it's very difficult for them to understand that.
That's what. So unless we learn to step back and observe this machinery, how it runs, from where do these suggestions come, transmits the messages of the cosmic force. So, like desires, you go to a marketplace, you have not gone with the idea of buying, but you feel the urge to buy. And when you have bought one, you feel the urge to buy another, and then yet another, because these forces are having a holiday. A whisper falls into life's inner ear and echoes from the dun subconscient caves. Speech leaps, thought quivers, the heart vibrates, the will answers, and tissue and nerve obey the call. This now the full mechanism. So there are forces and agencies hidden behind. In the inconscient, they awaken, they are given a task which has its place in the totality of things. So they act, repeat, they have time to time, they will wake up, they will growl. So they are given the task. And when they growl, because they are hungry, we feel hungers of various kinds, physical, emotional, etc. etc. When we eat, it reaches them and they are quiet. Then they wake up again and this cycle goes on. And when they touch us, then we say, oh, I am so hungry. Whatever thing, money could be, thought leaps, feelings come, will and nerve and tissue answer, okay, let's go. Let's go and have food in that good hotel. So it's all driven by this mechanism. Our lives translate these subtle intimacies. All is the commerce of a secret power. So everything that we experience on the surface has deep roots, and here Sri Aurobindo is, through this little life, is giving us the way, even from the greater life, from the mental realms. This is how they act. The forces as vibrations come and touch us in different parts. And automatically their touch is translated, carried through nerve, and translated into our brain as thought, feelings, speech. We end up speaking things which we regret later. But we have spoken. That's it.
And Mother says, step back a moment. Keep your lips closed.
Yeah.
And we have that famous joke. Better to keep one's mouth shut than to and seem like a fool than to open it and remove all doubt.
Confirm it. So true. So you see, this is the whole mechanism. And we'll just end with one line, though it's a new movement, and we'll read this line again. But it's worth pondering upon and reflecting upon. A thinking puppet is the mind of life. It's a puppet. And as long as we lend ourselves to these forces and agencies, we remain their puppet. But we have a choice of becoming puppets of the divine. But it has to be consciously done in freedom. Divine doesn't like to forcibly snatch us. Hopefully, some people he does, and one wishes he did it, but then we won't be really prepared to become his puppets. So we have to go through a number of experiences till we are really ready, very consciously and in freedom, each and every part we hand over to the divine, then we become his puppets. And then it's wonderful. Okay.